Alright everyone, we start off today talking about the January 6th insurrection hoax, which is what it is. There was no insurrection that day, although there was a coup attempt. It didn't fall on January 6th. Wink wink, honk honk. Anyway, we're going to talk about some tidbits from, from their primetime coverage and what this really means politically. It really is like the current gun control debate. It's not really much of a debate. It's already falling apart. It doesn't help when a leftoid attempts to assassinate a member of the Supreme Court based partially on the issue of guns. I like how they forced Roe v. Wade to the fore in all of their coverage of Nicholas Roske, or Rost, or whatever the fuck, however you pronounce it, when also a separate grievance was the idea of the Supreme Court passing nationwide constitutional carry. That one is often not related at all in legacy media reporting. There may be a reason why this is the case. Could partisan politics be playing a role? Could focus group tested messaging from the White House in coordination with the legacy media be playing a role? Yeah, probably. By the way, make sure to tune these people out. Always right-click and save the news links before you share them out anywhere. Run them through archive.today. Drain them of some of their money. Drain them of some of their clickbait bullshit. The Democrats right now are desperate. They can't run in the midterms, which are coming up in a few months. They can't run on the economy, despite Biden's attempt to rework the messaging on the economy as a positive thing. Oh, inflation has some benefits. Oh, well, labor force participation isn't that low. Hey, unemployment's technically down. It's fallen flat. People have rejected that message. You can look at Biden's fucking approval polling, and you'll see that. And keep in mind, many of those polls still persistently oversample Democrats because they're using the methodology of last election's turnout. Well, the perceived turnout, assuming that you assume it's real, honk honk, is not holding true. Over the last year and a half, there has been a massive, massive swing against the Democratic Party. Not all to the Republicans, though. A lot of it's just the rise of independent voters. They've lost on the economy. They're losing on crime. You saw what happened in San Francisco the other day. Their DA, who is one of the soft-on-crimers, a Soros plant, got absolutely slamma-jammed out of his position and recalled. You saw in the mayoral race in Los Angeles a similar result. This is in California. This is in far blue land. San Francisco, one of the bluest areas of the country, and you still ended up with the idpol socialist DA being recalled. They've lost on that. They've certainly lost on the border. Again, you can look at the map in 2020. There was a continuous swing against the Democrats in bordering counties. That is continuing. There's a reason why approval among Hispanic voters for Biden is now arguably, according to some polls, lower than among white voters. His approval among Hispanic voters has systemically collapsed. This is an idpol block that they've been whining and dining now for 3 or 4 decades, and they've completely flown the coop. They've lost total control of the narrative. You can't win on Ukraine. More and more Americans are saying, hey, it seems a little conspicuous. We're running out of formula. We've got shortages. We've got considerable inflation. We've got all sorts of economic issues, and you're sending $40 billion worth of goods to Ukraine, where arguably some of those missiles and shit are now being sold on the black market, like on the dark web and stuff. Since they have no mainline issue to actually campaign on, the Democrats have pivoted to 2 things. Number 1, guns, and I'll explain the importance of that. And number 2, the January 6th subcommittee. I'll get to that separately. On guns, I've explained now for years, the Democrats have lost the culture war against guns. The Second Amendment will be upheld, generally speaking, over the coming years. People are turning against gun control. It's becoming less and less popular. More people own guns, more households have guns, more people have more guns. Pro-gun sentiment is on the rise. I wonder why, with the crime rate being the way that it is. If the DA is not willing to prosecute all the criminals and they get let back out onto the street, at some point you may have to defend your home. I think that's probably the most cerebral response and reason why. Since they have lost on guns, why therefore before midterms would they be pushing it as a major issue? It's because they've lost less on guns. It's a more slow crawl loss over time than they have on the border, which is more of an acute issue. On crime, which is more acute. It's an issue for the last few years. It's not an issue for the decades prior. Crime was collapsing in the wake of the end of the 1990s. Throughout the 2000s and most of the 2010s, violent crime in the United States plummeted. It plummeted to levels not seen in 50 years. It was like going back to the Andy Griffith era or Gunsmoke, and that was the crime rate. They've lost on the issue, but less than these other issues. On economics, certainly, that's I think the lowest that Biden has his approval and the Democrats as a party. The same is true of January 6th. The fact is that the vast majority of the public already knows about it. They've already seen tidbits from it. They've seen news clips of it. They've seen footage from it. Virtually everyone has already made up their minds about whether January 6th was, number one, an insurrection, which I reject. I think that's quite clear. Number two, and I would accept this, a fiery but mostly peaceful protest that got well out of hand. That's what I think. It was not an organized coup attempt. It was a disorganized mob, effectively, and devolved from something that had been semi-orderly before, which was Trump giving a speech and saying, march past the Capitol. Let your grievances be heard. It was a protest. It was a march. Some people splintered off and decided to do something more than that. Or if you believe that it was justice in some sense. I reject that too, of course. Was it helpful in the political and social sense? Not really. It doesn't seem to be, as the Democrats understand this too, which is why they're pushing it to the fore. So then why would they make it a main primetime issue? It's to grandstand. It's to try to cement. This isn't meant to change the minds of independent voters. And it is political posturing, of course. They don't seek any real closure. They know Trump's not going to get charged with treason. They know that they're not going to get any high-level individuals snatched up in anything. All they're doing is taking the same doctored clips, third-party, first-hand so-called accounts from various generals and politicians and staffers. They're taking the same stuff we've already been hearing about for more than a year, and they're simply wrapping it all together in heavily edited form with Liz Cheney as the foreperson proposing it, and Schiff, of course, and then spewing it out like vomit for the American people to see one last time. They wouldn't be doing this unless they were desperate. This is a cry for help from the Democrats. They are desperate because the issue is not one they can win on. Everyone who is already concerned about what happened on January 6th has already made up their mind about the events. Of course, Trump's approval did take quite a toll after January 6th because of the nonstop negative coverage more than anything else. I'll tell you why this doesn't really impact the midterms. It's called recency bias. January 6th was a long time ago. People no longer count it as important. But inflation data comes in every month. Crime data comes in continuously. They can see it on news reports every day. Oh, this person got shot, and there's this gang drive-by. Most of it is gang violence. This person shot themselves and killed themselves. The border, at least if you're in or around the border. That is an everyday issue. You're getting constant updates about the number of people in the latest caravan to cross the southern border. Those are acute issues. Ukraine is an acute issue. You get news basically every hour out of Ukraine, pertinent to the United States getting involved in a war with a non-ally that it is not directly allied to. January 6th is not an acute issue. It is a one-off, one-time event frozen in time that happened over a year ago. The American people's response to this will ultimately be tepid. The people that are giving it great importance, Robert Reich, AOC, who's still pretending that she was in the Capitol that day and not in an entirely separate building a couple of blocks away. But by the way, the self-serving egotism of people like AOC about the event, not necessarily the greatest for promoting this as a national issue either. The fact is that the people that are giving this undue importance, and then like Joy Reid and so forth, their audiences are echo chambers. None of those people are going to vote Republican. 99% of them are Democratic partisans. The rest of them are ideological leftists. They already hate Trump. They already assume that there was a coup attempt that day. They agree with all of these morons. You're not changing anyone's mind. The only thing the Democrats are trying to do is stir those people up, get them energized ahead of the midterm so that their turnout won't be so lukewarm. The fact is, it's not going to work. You're shooting, again, much like with guns, you shot your load way too early. We've still got 5 months before the midterms. Nobody's going to be talking about the January 6th commission by that point, except for people that give it undue importance because they're part of that same left-wing echo chamber. They're not going to give a shit. As far as guns, arguably, are just energizing the other side, the conservative voters that are arming up even more. By the way, Democrats are buying more guns now as well. with their gun control attempt. You had 3 different Democrats vote against some of the aspects in the House of the proposed anti-gun legislation that the House has put forward. I believe there were 3 for the the safe storage, number 1, and for the raising of the age from 18 to 21 for assault weapons, which is a non-classification for legal purposes. I think there were 3 that held out on that, and I think it was variable on the other provisions. There's like 7 or 8 of them. All of them are DOA in the Senate, so that Hail Mary will fail. Ultimately, they'll just say that Manchin obstructed. He'll probably vote against at least some aspects, and that the Republicans hate kids. But the problem is you're doing this too early. I don't know why they didn't wait until September or something like that. They should have televised these things in September or at the very earliest, maybe August or something, or October. They should have gone much closer to the midterms and then attempted to force fuck these things as issues down the public's throat. Then you energize your base. I mean, it doesn't accomplish anything else, but it's closer to the midterms. Do you expect that having Liz Cheney prattle on for a half an hour is really going to energize people 5 months from now? Again, the attempted strategy of the Biden administration, the asterisk administration, and his allies is so off point, so off focus. I'm astonished. I'm genuinely astonished. And I say this, I've seen it all. I remember the Bush administration. I remember Obama. I remember some of the foibles of the Trump administration. Hell, I remember the Clinton administration, although I was quite young at the time and not analyzing politics. I sort of arrive on the set around 2006 on Facebook, and then the rest is history. I've never seen messaging that is this starkly bad, this obviously reekingly desperate in my entire life. You know, and I'm in my mid-30s now, so take that or leave it. This is hilarious. All you're getting is, again, the egotism of AOC, the dysfunction and hateability of Liz Cheney. She's not even a Democrat, so the Democrats still have a dislike for her, generally speaking. They consider her a useful idiot, like an orangutan in a zoo cage. Basically the same mental capabilities, by the way. I think the orangutan probably better at conversation and political strategy than the neocon rhino Republicans like Liz Cheney, etc., certainly than most of the Democrats. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit about the January 6th Commission except for the people that are making a boatload of money covering it in the legacy media. That's about all. Peace out.